Still can't watch new Survivor, still living this bad dream, and watching an old season with a controversial theme. Those two jerks, John and Andy, were too lazy to come back. So once again, the B team's here to pick up all the slack. Emma will just ramble, Matt will chase his barking dog. We're combining episodes because folks say the pre-merge is a slog. Oh, there's a new season soon, cause now there's a vaccine. But until then, here comes Cook Islands, and we're not spoiler-free. It's the Purple Rock Pandemic Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am your host, Matt. With me is Emma. That's right. We are doing a Cook Islands rewatch together. You get your blackjack, you get your hookers, not a John nor a... Oh, God damn it. Andy, why the hell are you here?
Oh, hey guys. Thanks for having me on your show. First time, long time. Really excited to be here.
I thought you weren't going to be doing this.
This was like a whole thing. You got, the People's Champions helming the podcast for the first time since what, our Philippines rewatch?
Something like that.
We're a real Penner duo is the situation here.
We recorded a whole new theme song, man.
That specifically does not mention you. You know who it does mention? Those barks you hear in the background. Hey.
Yeah. That's true.
I liked how you said we recorded a whole new one. I feel like it was probably somebody else.
Yeah, it was Mike. Thanks, Mike.
Credit to Mike. Some of us maybe contributed more creatively than others. But Mike did all the actual work. And that's the way we like it.
Right.
I'm just here for the with special guest star Heather Locklear credit on every episode. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. We'll edit that one in at the end.
If the others show up, we'll have to talk to your agents about who gets the with, who gets the and.
Right.
I love
and
a good
featuring would be if we have, 3 others show up.
That will, please God, I hope that never happens.
Yeah, no, that would be
Too
terrible.
much work.
Anyway, we should talk actually about why we're here. We're doing another rewatch because there's still no new Survivor. Again, as the theme song says, still no new Survivor. So we have decided to do Cook Islands, which is a personal favorite of the website, one that we've always rated higher than other places on the internet. And so we thought it would be a perfect season to talk about. What's not
maybe
perfect,
we're wrong.
Right. Well, what's not
Probably
perfect
not.
about the season is the theme. And
It's a
look at
bad
that
theme.
segue. Boom.
Hey. Yeah, the theme, as some of you might have seen when we had our preview post, Sharkules in the comments was like, Emma, have you told your husband the theme, or are you just gonna let him find that out? And I think I had maybe mentioned it or in passing, oh yeah, there's one season I want you to watch. The fun thing is, but he, does not retain such information super well. So I figured he probably forgot. And we're watching it along, and when the truth of the reveal, there's definitely the what? I'm like, oh God. And then there was a brief moment of extreme horror because he thought the Asian tribe was on the yellow raft and not the green raft, and was like, oh God, no. And I'm like, no, they're green. It's still bad, but it's not Power Rangers.
They avoided that much.
They had one job and they at least half did it.
Yeah. Andy, you would agree. This was a bad idea for a theme, right?
Oh, absolutely. One thing is at the time, it was a controversial thing like this. It wasn't that we tuned in that night and found out that they were doing this. It had been reported in mainstream news how, I had time to reconcile what a bad idea. And ultimately, when I heard they were doing that, my reaction is, wow, that's dumb. But also because All Stars had already happened, I knew that in a multiple season, more than 2 tribe seasons, this is 2 episodes or most. I wasn't going to be too up in arms in it. It's I don't think they're really going to go, full on race war the whole way. It's they're doing it to get the attention. Bad idea, but this isn't what the season's actually going to be.
Yeah, I think it's especially worth noting this aired directly after Panama, which had the 4 tribes, which was younger women, older women, where I think Suri was all of 35 years old. Younger men, older men, where again, Shane was, I think, 34. I think Bob Dog was like 32, and all the younger men tried. So clearly this is a theme they thought
A very
of
millennials versus
casting.
Gen X split there, you know?
Yeah. And except they're probably all Gen X.
Yes, well,
Terry.
yeah.
But the yeah, I mean that one lasted all of one episode before they switched. So I think it's definitely fair that a lot of the more observant viewers probably had to feel like this was not gonna be race wars all the way down.
So yeah, it's just why I couldn't get upset about it. It's just like I knew it was very dumb, but I also knew it wasn't really going to be what the season would be about. Like,
so
men
I
versus women seasons aren't men versus women seasons all the way through, and I knew this would be even more brief.
So I would actually say the bigger problem is not necessarily the starting theme, which is the problem, but also the way the show kind of leans into it at the beginning. Because I feel like the show leans into it, and then that puts pressure on the contestants to have to talk about it, which does lead to the contestants mostly going, oh yeah, this was a bad idea. I'm pretty uncomfortable with this. And then some contestants going, I feel like we have to, as a tribe, do well to represent like our race, which makes me even more uncomfortable with it. So there's an interesting kind of tension between, I think, what the producers, I think, wanted to get out of it, and then the way the contestants are kind of grappling with it in these first two episodes.
Yeah, it's a bad thing in so many ways. There's like what you mentioned, there's also, like these are the 4 races.
Right.
Like
not,
so and you have like, oh, you white people, you clearly have everything in common and stuff like that. I mean, there's the fact that Nate, his last name is Gonzalez, so it's not out of the question to think he might actually be Afro-Latino. And we know as being fans, who've seen him play a lot, like Ozzy is half white and half Mexican and doesn't really keep much in contact with his father. So like the environment he's raised in is very different. There's, you see in the Asian tribe that Yul and Becky are like, oh, we're both Korean. And Jenny even talks about like within our tribe, we have like, I'm Filipino, and like Brad is Filipino, but also Hawaiian and all of
right.
this, and Cowboy being like a refugee, and he's, so he's an immigrant, whereas the others are they first, are they parents? Are they second generation? You don't even know because it's not talked about. And there's, not a single like South Asian person or Native American person or whatever else they may decide everyone fits into 4 boxes.
Right. And then one thing that was actually very confusing to my girlfriend who I'm watching with is the fact that Parvati is named after a Indian concept or Indian goddess, I think. Yeah. So that also kind of confused her for a second. She's like, wait, but she's on the white tribe.
And Parvati is the one who's like, is this kosher? And
yes.
Parvati is also not the Jewish person on that
tribe.
Not
the Jewish person on that tribe as well. So
he was just raised on a commune.
I mean, this is obviously a terrible idea, and the way that like Jeff was taken aback right when they were all like, no, this is bad, and he's like, what? It just reeks of a bunch of white decision makers just not having any understanding of what it is, because we as fans like joke that this is Survivor Race Wars, but what Survivor was actually trying to do in their really Survivor-y way is like, highlight the various cultures and how that brings tribes together and blah blah blah. Like it's clear that either nobody in the room or nobody empowered in the room like felt comfortable to be able to say, no, we can't do this, and then clearly they did not bring up, so what happens if all of the non-white people are eliminated from the game? And we will get to that. So it is just a disaster, a bad idea, but the way that the season ends up working out, and the way that like they abandoned this after a couple, kind of watching it now, it's all just kind of funny. It's seeing like how like Jeff is taken aback, the way people react to it. Some of it is like it's so dumb that it's almost funny.
Yeah, and one thing that happens.
Sorry, I just want to point out real quick in case people who aren't on our website were but followed our Pearl Islands coverage. I just want to say up front, we are not doing a spoiler-free section
good point.
like we did for that. So we're going to be talking about things that happened throughout and kind of acknowledging how that is that way. Especially this is a season with a lot of players who come back. I believe it's 5 players eventually return. So if you haven't seen the season and you don't like spoilers, bear that in mind, and you probably want to binge the whole thing, and then you can join us later if you want. So I just wanted to get that in before we got too detailed. Sorry to interrupt, Matt.
No, that's all right. I kind of remember what I was going to say. Not entirely. Let's just go with it. But of course, one thing is, so they kind of dropped the theme after the first episode. The second episode is hitting it much, much lighter, if at all. Like the first episode I felt was hitting it pretty hard, and the second episode isn't as much. And then, of course, as we know, by the next episode, the tribe divisions will be gone. There'll just be 2 tribes. So what we're just left with at this point is most of the season just has the most diverse cast that ever existed to this point on Survivor. And the only season that I think outdoes it is Fiji, because I think Fiji is slightly better because there was 19 people because one white person quit. Am I right about that?
Correct.
That is correct, yeah.
Right. Does that make it more diverse? I guess like less.
Well, percentage-wise, I think it'd be 15 out of 19 then.
Oh yeah, I guess if you're talking as a higher population of POC, but
non-white participants.
But Pearl Island or Cook Islands is technically more diverse in that it's equally spread. Like when people like to say a group of people is diverse because they're all Asian or something.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That's fair. Like that's not what that means.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. But the point is, like, this has the most non-white people out of any season of Survivor to this point, which after one episode is just kind of really refreshing.
Yeah, it's refreshing both to see that many different faces and all that, but also because there's so many different that they get to be able to be defined by things besides the most obvious difference, right? So you get people to get to be jocks within a tribe and get to be leaders and followers. They still do the lazy black man edit though. They still find a way, but at least this time it's other black people pointing it out. So it's just they aren't
really more of a lazy man
as they get to be when they are forced to be in the minority. We get to see them be different types because that is no longer the thing that defines them within a group of strangers.
Yeah, and it's, in my opinion, like that then becomes the big strength of the season going through, is the fact that we get these all these characters that aren't just defined by the fact that they're the one black person in the entire game.
And it's actually a thought that I had that did not occur to me when I suggested we should cover Cook Islands, is if the very next season of Survivor, if it ever happens again, the next new season of Survivor we get will be the first within their new initiative that I believe that they've promised, much more diversity, much more 50%. Representation of BIPOC people, to the point I think it's like they're like a split, like 50-50 at least.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, hey, we get to see the last time they did that. Unfortunately, when they did that, they thought it would be fun to divide people. For people who don't know, Fiji is not divided that way, but only because A, backlash, and B, they couldn't do it because somebody dropped out right before the game. That was supposed to be Race Wars 2. Same races, though. That you think, for the sequel, you would have brought in.
Yeah. You would have tried something different.
Middle Eastern people.
And also, again, race.
They don't exist. They don't exist.
Yeah. There are only 4 types of
only
people.
4 types.
Yeah, the big argument, one of the many arguments of why they need to do this is so
two.
that minorities can be more than just minorities. That they can be developed in different ways, both in a competitive way within the show, and also in the way that the show presents them.
Yes. So let's talk about the actual gameplay itself. We saw Penner getting sent to Exile Island because he stole the chickens from Yule. Do you think that set a tone for the game, or for his game, I should say?
I think it separates him from his tribe, obviously, but literally, separates him from his tribe early on. And we see he never really quite fits in with them. I think a lot of that is the age gap. Every other white person is young. They're all
like
in their
super
20s.
young. Like
Yeah, I mean, Parvati and Candace are the youngest people on the entire season. I was looking it up for things we'll discuss later, but this is a surprisingly older season. It's not older, I guess, because there's no like the oldest person is Sekou and he's 45, but it's the median, like the average age, it's a lot of 30 something and later 20s, and we
wait,
see
did
now
you do
where
math, Emma?
No. I
No.
bet
Oh.
if Brad were to listen to this, I'm sure he'd be like, "You're using that wrong." But he's not.
Just checking.
I mean, I don't know. She could be right, but I was just saying there's no way she did math for this, right?
Okay, I'm just
I
checking.
didn't like actually calculate anything, but I can look at a list and be like, there's more people in their 30s than I feel like is normally the case. And like a lot of the 20 somethings are later 20s, and like
Right.
Parvati and Candace are 23. And you know, now when we get so many people that are 21, 20, 19, you know, I think that stood out to me as just being, you know, we just had, especially because so few of those people in their 30s like were married or had children or anything like that. So it's an interesting dynamic.
That's
But,
actually a good point. Despite having a lot of people in their 30s, there's not a lot of parents in this cast.
Yeah. And so I think that's another thing that separates Penner.
Right.
I think I even heard Candace talking about this on like a podcast a while back, that, you know, they just, the fact, like he would talk about his family and stuff, and they just don't relate because these are all just, you know, young people. And,
Family is the thing they get away from right now, not something that is important to bring to them.
Right.
Right. And I think coupling that with him being separated and with him like, ooh, does he have an idol? Did he look for an idol? Is that sneaky? You know, I think leads to it. And then the fact that the very next person who goes is Yule and he does get the idol, and we know how that plays out. That definitely affects Penner's game.
So yeah, this is, I mean, spoiler for later in the season, but again, you're expected to have seen the whole season. The very first two people to go to the tribal council shaped the entire game as a result. Obviously, Yule getting the idol, I mean, there are people who will argue that is like the biggest reason why he won. We are not those people. We will not do that. Those arguments are to come. But Penner himself, like, while he does not get along, I feel like, yeah, I think the separation certainly did not help. But I also kind of get the vibe that I don't know if he ever was going to. He was still able to survive in the middle section of this game, even when they hated Penner post mutiny. And the reason that has, you know, that's gone out there, that's been said, is that they thought he had the idol. And that is why they don't try to vote him out. That's why they don't listen to him when he says, "Hey, you guys ever think that maybe Yule has the idol?" It's because they thought
they're like,
yeah,
no, you do.
That's what someone who has the idol would say.
Initially, for Penner, is he's given as a justification one of the reasons why he did the mutiny. Biggest one being, you know, Candace was his main ally in Flips. The other one is that he thought Adam had the idol, who was the next person to go to Exile. And so, like of what shapes how this game flips and turns around in the middle section, and then carries through to the end, is from these first two trips to Exile Island. And it's kind of weird that like a segment that is otherwise, you know, frequently just boring and to the point where we've argued needs to go away. I don't think is there at this point, because this is what the second season that they've like had Exile Island as more than just a one-time thing like they had in Plow. But it's usually just a dead period of time, especially once an idol is found. But here, it's as impactful as it ever has been.
Yeah, I mean, more impactful than in Tocantins, where there was the vaunted Exile Alliance that nothing came of. Nothing came of that. Like this, it actually did shape the game. People's perceptions of what could have happened there and what they believe did happen there and what actually happened there.
So weird that like they all think Penner has it because when Adam goes, he knows that it's not there anymore to be found.
Right.
He thinks Adam has it. Why is nobody thinking Yule has it? Now, normally when like two white people only suspect each other instead of the minority, you'd be able to draw that short line pretty quick. But if we're working on stereotypes here, I don't know that people would be like, that Yule guy clearly is not smart enough to have found the idol. Like, it's weird that like that would be like,
Penner would have said that about Adam.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like Penner should have been like it was either Yule or like Adam. Like that I could understand.
Especially Yule was sent, like Penner was sent for being like deceitful. Yule was sent to Exile because they're like, this is clearly the strongest person on their tribe. And then at that point, once they merge, like, I feel like you have one conversation with Yule and he's smart.
Yeah. The other thing about like Yule and that tribe was in the first episodes, they're really kicking ass. They are just, they are destroying these challenges.
Yeah, and I also
I feel like
Kenner
do
knew
they
that
not,
like there's
if
no
they
way
did-
you're gonna find it without 3 clues. Cause like his clue was worthless, right?
Oh yeah, totally.
But it's like why Adam
he even got like he's like, okay, I know there's an A, like he got that far at least. But...
Right. He just didn't know that, what to make the A with and everything. Whereas Yule did, and he was able to find it.
And those ones back then where you had to just like dig a hole, or like you're not finding that without the right clues.
Frankly, I was a little surprised that Yule did, like, because he's like, well, you can't see it. Well, that's pretty variable based on your height and time of day, I imagine, right? Yeah. And to the point where like it was the edge of his hole. Like, how big would that hole have had to have been?
Yeah. It's also just like something that isn't very intuitive, kind of lining up like the island with the crossbar and then walking back a certain thing. Triangulation is something that most humans have not had to do in a long time. I know because I had to do it once in a video game and I did not understand how it worked as a kid. So very impressive for Yule to figure that one out. Not going to lie.
Yule is very impressive and handsome.
This is a very good looking cast. I don't think that's in the breakdown. But like throughout, again, that's probably also another benefit of the fact that they had to start looking for different kinds of people instead of just relying on the same sort of people, the same buckets. It's like, okay, let's go get our actors from the boardwalk when I'm going to the beach or whatever. They had to find different groups of people, and thus we get a lot of different kinds of attractiveness. Like every tribe has some rock stars on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then some. Like more than one. There's a lot of hot people. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there's
I see what you mean. Okay.
Andy gets me.
So the first tribe that went to Tribal Council was the.
I have the tribe names written down. I wanted to see which one of us would try to fall into that trap.
The Monahiki tribe. I had to change windows so I could get it accurate. So the Monahiki tribe goes first. And it's pretty obvious that it's gonna be Nader's Seku. Was there any chance that Stephanie was gonna side with them?
The argument they gave her to me made so little sense because it was like, well, Rebecca and Sandra are a clear pair. So once they get rid of the 2 guys, then you're obviously going third. And I'm like, and what do you think happens after you get rid of Rebecca and Sandra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, she caught on to that immediately.
Right, because she is not an idiot.
So then I guess, was it the right decision to get rid of Seiko?
Well, to first answer your question, is there something they could have done? It's the same thing that anybody could do in these situations. Be nicer to people before you need them. That's just a pretty simple Survivor thing.
There is that.
If they had bonded with Stephanie earlier and they were 3, then the other 2 doesn't matter. You would overcome this impossible gender gap, which, to be clear, like by the time we get past the first 3 days, does not exist on the other tribes. They have all found intergender pairings and such. But no, they were dicks. They were like, hey, we're the awesome ones. Like, I love in the conversation with Stephanie, it's like, you got to keep us. They can't even start a fire. And then she's like, we don't have fire. Like, why are you saying, Seku, that you're the key to fire when you're not?
Even after he got voted out, he's like, good luck to them getting fire. I was like, you literally have not made fire.
Right. And then, of course, in the next episode, Nate is trying like crazy to start that fire with Flint. He walks away, and Rebecca and Sandra do it in like 5 seconds. I mean, as we see, it probably took
a little longer, and also it was Rebecca, because, man, I was like, wait, the Sandra? I was like, because I didn't quite remember, and I'm like, oh my God, but no.
Well, Sandra was sitting next to her. She was there, but it was
She
Rebecca.
is good. Sandra is very practiced at sitting next to somebody who starts a fire.
Oh, man.
No, but I also pointed that out to who I was watching with, that it was Rebecca that started that fire. Because it was important.
Plus, the aforementioned sending Penner to exile. I mean, when Jeff Probst is calling you out on your sexism, like, that's not like a great sign. when Nate and Sekou step away from the women. Just like so blatantly, so bad. Not a great look.
Right,
like
but
Stephanie had already noticed. Like we get her earlier in the episode being like, "Oh, those two are closer." Like she was already like mentioning, feelings of exclusion. Now, with the asterisk, we never know when like a confessional is given within the place of time. But it suggests if that is anywhere within the accurate timeline of early, that there was an opportunity there. But it doesn't come at the last minute, and it doesn't come with that argument of, well, you're the third, so join our two. It should be that us three, look at those two, like before you ever lose. That's the key to Survivor. You need to put your groundwork in before it's obvious that you're only coming to me because you need something.
Right, and what I was going to say was that I think it's actually pretty clear that Stephanie doesn't feel super close with Sandra and Rebecca. I mean, obviously closer than with Nate and Sekou. But I think the opportunity was there had they started working earlier, and they just didn't. So
now, one other note, with this more diverse cast, they were also reaching out to a different type of casting pool. A lot of the people that are participating are not exactly Survivor fans. And I don't even know which ones. I mean, I can pick out one right away, Yul Kwan. So this is a very this is a very recruit heavy. So I suppose I can forgive that, like they didn't understand that you need to be doing this right away, day one, especially when there are only 5 of you. But at the same time, it's like some other things that will happen later this season. It doesn't take a genius to figure these things out.
I was going to say it's kind of common sense, like get on the good side of people that you're on the tribe with. I don't know.
You think it's common sense, but it comes into play in the very next tribal council.
I was going to say, there's a lot of things that are common sense that don't quite happen.
Yeah, so let's skip ahead to that next tribal council. So the next tribe to go is when Ozzy throws the challenge and Aitu Taki goes to tribal council.
To be fair, I'd say Ozzy and, well, I guess JP sat out, but JP was fully in on that, plan as well.
That is true. Okay, so Ozzy and JP decide to throw a challenge. Let's just discuss that decision right there. Is it right to throw the second challenge of the season to get rid of someone that you don't like very much?
No. Also, it's not even just that they don't like it. It's like he's dead weight. He's holding us back. I'm like, maybe wait to see if he causes you to lose challenges before.
Yeah. You got to get rid of this guy or we're going to lose. So let's lose so that we don't lose. It is so, out there.
This is one of the biggest challenge beasts in Survivor history.
Challenge beast, yes. Strategist, maybe not. Like it is such a plan that you can totally understand that this is an Aussie type plan.
Oh yeah. I'm just I mean,
so
what is this? I mean, yeah,
it's so bad.
It's really dumb. Now
it's one of the worst of all time. Like my wife,
especially. Sorry, just especially Billy is not someone that would have been hard to convince people to vote out when you eventually lost naturally. So if it's just that you don't like him, like you'll get there. It's fine. Let it happen.
And then all it does is make enemies of the people who are more reluctant to do this. So you just create more division within your own tribe rather than
we don't know how close it came.
What?
Like we don't know how close it came, but like Cecilia and Christina, they were thinking about it at least. They were.
I don't think Cecilia.
I don't think Cecilia was actually thinking.
Christina was thinking about it though.
Christina was thinking about it, but Cecilia wasn't.
That's an unforced error.
No, it's like there's also no margin for error. So what if you guys trip in the next challenge? Like there's only 5 of you. Again, me watching as having watched the season, I was like, there's not going to be 5 of you for very long. This is probably near the end. Maybe one more. Who knows? And I should say that future seasons prove that wrong, that sometimes they will just let it go and go and go. But not usually this close. It is one of the worst of all time. My wife hates it when people throw challenges. She's one of those watchers. And I've had to say, like, no, there are times when it makes sense. When the show is handing you an adversary from which you can dispose of, do it. Yeah. Take the bird in hand. This is not that. This is the very second one. This is somebody on your tribe. And, what did it work out? No. they go into a merge and there's suddenly one less person. Suddenly they are one of two tribes that are down people, and it will not work out for some of the people who do it. It will work out okay, like fine. It won't hurt the person who is credited with the move. But yeah, no, you don't need to do this. You never need to do it this early. Wait until you lose, because you might. This one you wouldn't have, though.
No, they would not have lost this one. No. And who would have lost this one?
It would have been the Manahiki tribe as well. And that's the thing. So then they,
so honestly, thank God Ozzy threw the challenge.
Yes, I know.
Oh boy.
But like if they lost, then suddenly that tribe is the one that's the minority amongst minorities on mixed tribes. And maybe they don't do well, or maybe they do fine, because sometimes the smaller group breaking into a bigger group, people try to use them. But it's like, you weakened your position at the wrong time.
Yeah.
However,
another one thing I'll say though, I get it a little bit. It's a dumb thing. It's a bad strategy. But haven't we all been in group projects where it's that person who's doing nothing and it's just making it harder for you? You have to do that much more work, but we'll end up getting the credit. Like, I could understand wanting to do it, because it seemed like, they structure it about like he's going to cause us to lose challenges. That's ridiculous in the sense that I guess he did because you did it to yourself. Right. But it seems like he's lazy around camp. Seems to be a good, and there's not much room to hide in a 5-person thing. So I
do think a lot of Ozzy's
and he's not interested in hiding either. He was just like, okay, I'm gonna go over here now, and everyone's like, the hell, man.
Yeah, I do think a lot of Ozzy's actual issue was like, well, now they have to feed it, like they have to provide the food, and they are doing the shelter and blah blah blah. And so yes, I guess in that sense he's like holding them back because that's one more person they have to do that stuff for. But it's not worth it.
No, you suck it up, man. Like, you'll probably lose at some point, but so you don't need to force the issue.
Yeah. If Manahiki had gone, who do we think they would have voted out? Would it have been Nate, or would it have been, or like, Stephanie?
I don't think it would have been Nate.
Yeah, I don't think
no,
so.
I think they would have been worried about challenges at that point, losing twice too much to vote Nate. So probably Stephanie.
Yep. That's what I think as well. I don't think you lose 2 in a row and then think we can get rid of the most muscle in our tribe, because challenges still require that.
Right.
Do we all want to be the ones lifting the heavy thing, as part of the challenge? No. So
yeah, okay. Just was curious there. So they throw it out. They go to tribal council. They vote Billy out after Billy gives one of the strangest moments in Survivor history there. He confesses his love for Candace, someone who he's spoken all of 3 words to.
His apparently requited love. Like, he's not just saying, like, I fell in love. It's like,
I had a love connection. This was both of us here.
This is one of those love at first sight situations.
So as I was watching with my girlfriend, I was after this scene at the end of the challenge, I made sure that she understood exactly what was said there, without letting on why, of course, yet. I was just like, oh, so you see how she said, we love you, and then he said, I love you back, and she's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I caught that. And I was like, okay. And because when he quotes it, it is, she said, I love you, and I said, I love you as well.
This was watching my husband watch this was the greatest moment of my life.
Oh, it was so much fun to watch someone who had no idea what was coming to watch this and then just sit bolt upright like, wait, what?
He was like, it's sort of like he was annoyed they were throwing the challenge and he didn't like that, and it's like, okay, well, it's probably gonna be him. Like, I'm just gonna like brush my teeth and be like half kind of peeking in, because at that point you don't need to see as much when they're just talking at tribal, right? And then I hear it start to switch, and I like go hit the back 10 seconds. I was like, no, you have to watch this. You must be here. And like toothbrush 8 miles, just like, what? Billy, no, she was just being nice. And like just went on and on of like, no, oh God, does he really think that? This man was near tears. We have, and in between Pearl Islands, we had watched Panama, we'd watched China, we'd watched Palau. This was a bigger reaction than I had for the dead grandma lie, than Ian stepping off the platform, than Jamie playing a fake idol, than James not playing two idols, than anything Saria's ever done, anything Shane's ever done. He just lost it for minutes. For afterwards, minutes after the episode, just like, oh, it hurts. Oh, this is so painful. Oh God, why? And then he was like, today, he's like, oh, you're recording tonight, right? I'm like, yeah. I was like, oh, any last minute thoughts on Billy Garcia? Should you in the pod? He said, oh God, I pray for that man, and I haven't prayed in a long time.
And that man being an operative term here, because you dropped a bombshell on us about this.
Remember when I mentioned I looked up ages? Billy Garcia
Yeah.
was 36 years old.
36, a grown-ass man by any definition.
Ass man.
That fucking floored me. I thought you were lying.
Yeah, I didn't believe it.
Remember when Andy was like, oh wait, no, actually, remember when Matt was like, oh, Emma, did you do math? Yeah, so I'm not like great at math. And when I said that Billy was 36, and he was like, are we sure she didn't do her math wrong?
Yeah, like somebody check the math, because I thought maybe he put the year that he was born and got the year that it aired wrong. But yeah, it just tells you the ages of when they were.
Straight up ages, baby. That man, 36 years old. Also, Cowboy, 42. What the fuck?
Younger than me.
That's shocking. That is
like, I've got some gray hairs too, my man, but yikes.
Yeah, so
granted, I've gone through a lot, so you know.
I watched this for the second time with my wife. We of course watched it, however many years ago, 12.
In 2006.
And her reaction was, what? Because she had no memory of this happening. It was new to her once again. It's like, to the point where she's like, what is she even talking about? And I'm like, okay, at the end of the episode, I had to rewind to bring it back to the challenge, because she was, and she's like, yeah, I watched this. She watched them choose Yule. And then just to illustrate what a complete nothing of a moment Candace, saying that to him, it didn't even register. Maybe she'd looked down at her iPad at that moment or whatever, but she had no memory of any interaction from which Billy was describing. Like, no, they showed it. Because, I'm not one of those annoying viewers like, hey, you got to watch this. It's significant. I'm not.
But this.
But yeah, so it's great. Like, even her, like, oh no, because she was feeling bad for poor Billy. And I gotta say, the first time I watched it, I did too. It just reeks of douchebaggery by Ozzy and JP. It is clearly they're kicking around the oddball, the fat kid that they don't like. The second time watching it, a little less sympathy, because like it is also because he's not doing anything, right? Like they are douchey guys, but they're also hardworking, And we know this Ozzy. Like Ozzy does stuff around camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so when he does this. You like at first you're feeling bad, like they're laughing as they are throwing a challenge to get rid of this poor guy, and then he does it. It's like, yes, it's probably good that he goes. It's fine that he's going away. Like, I don't know if there's any regrets at this point, because for one, it creates one of the ridiculous and most funny moments in Survivor. For two, there's just a bit of a dark side to it, and that this is what happens when women show the least bit of kindness to a dude. That suddenly that they can blow something.
A woman 13 years his junior.
Yeah, just being nice to somebody, and it's all of a sudden, and like I don't want to sit here and say like Billy is an incel or something like that. It's not. I don't know case to case basis, but this is the
systemic issue.
Yeah, it's the sort of behavior. It's possible that Billy was just trying to save face, like that he didn't even believe it in that moment. And I'm sure people have heard Billy speak about this moment offline. Like he's on our half a lot. I don't care really. For my recollection of the moment, for me, it's like I want to believe that he was being that ridiculous, and that ultimately it's probably best that we got 2 episodes of Billy Garcia and nothing further. If like that, I don't want to see the Billy who survives and thinks now that his mission is to be with the great love of his life, Candace.
Yeah, no, that would get real creepy real fast.
The thing that's so good about it too is like that of all the people, it's Candace who's like having her own showmance on her tribe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
like it could not, like the scenario Billy is before, it could not be less true because she's like currently with, you know, I
Candace is
can't
the
remember
person
if
that
they've
would love
already
me,
started
the heavy
making
metal
out, but we
guy.
know they do eventually.
And then
Yeah.
meanwhile, she's hooking up with one of the biggest douchebags in Survivor history.
Such a douche. Oh my god.
Yeah, Adam's the worst.
Fake.
Already, Adam's really bad.
Right away,
And he's
boom.
barely done anything. He's barely done anything, and already
There's
Adam's
a
just
couple
like,
good-looking
oh,
girls.
Yeah.
Great-looking girls.
I mean, and he's not wrong. Like, you
He's
know,
not wrong.
Darby is like an epic all-timer and all that. But yeah, like everything, like he is just the broiest bro. Yeah, I bet there's probably like this is the first time he's had like pictures taken of him in a long time that he wasn't wearing a backwards hat. Like this guy is just pure frat. And everything about him, and it never changes. You know, he squints with his look. It's like, what do you have to say
really
about it?
has the most. Sorry, I was just. He just has the most douchey face. He's the most punchable face. I've
There you
ever
go.
seen.
That's how you described it. It is completely accurate. Back in the day when like I was watching this and following along on Television Without Pity, you know, like the commenters named him Adam. Like it was just like
clever.
Got him.
Yeah, I know, but it's like perfect, like just about his
Yeah.
whole vibe, and it's
No
clear.
douchebag, but okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's clear that like, you know, he never has to work for anything. Things just come, and like he doesn't in this season. He gets thrust into leadership positions clearly just due to his privilege. I fucking hate Adam. And what's nice is like he's not really a bad person, so it's an easy hate, you know. Well,
I don't know.
like we don't know
That
how
we
bad. Like,
see.
Okay,
touche.
That's
We
fair.
should never say nobody is bad or anybody's good. We don't know these people.
That's what I was gonna say. That's
Yeah,
what I was gonna
look.
say.
I mean, Candace seemed like one of the you know terrible people. Look at Candace now, doing good things. Also, upgrade of the fucking century.
Yeah, that
from
is
Adam. Immediate, and I believe like once this
She
was
watched
airing,
this
she was
season with
already,
her future husband.
yeah, she was already dating John Cody. Like upgrade of the century. Good for her.
I have to know what John was
Vaccinated
thinking
queen.
watching this season. Like that.
Oh,
She's talked
it's
about
so
being
awkward.
mortified watching this, and yeah, like again, like imagine like just the you know the most embarrassing hookup of your life, and she gets it on TV all the time. Like, yeah, maybe she was just having some fun, you know. I'm sure med school was pretty intense or whatever. Maybe she hadn't entered med school yet, but like pre-med or whatever.
Yeah, I think she's.
And it's just like, hey, why not? And then she has to watch it with somebody that she's like actually serious with. Well, he's like,
It's just, he's so like that I can see why like that he's considered like objectively attractive. He obviously has like a good body, is in shape, but he's like has such the douchey face that I just don't even register him as like appealing.
This is how bad Adam is. My girlfriend who I was watching with, when I asked her at the end of the episode, who do you dislike, said, "Oh, those two fratty guys on the white person tribe." And I was like, you're not. I was like, there's only two guys, and one of them is Penner, the older family guy. And she's like, oh yeah, not him. You know, I thought that one guy was two people because that's how bad he was.
he has the doucheness of two.
So
That's
you know,
incredible.
yeah.
That's so good. That's so funny. That's incredible. I hate him.
Yeah, he stinks.
As a character, whatever.
Let's talk about another character on this season. Cowboy. He doesn't really fit in with his tribe, does he?
No.
Yeah, you can really see, and this is again, I think, where the theme being bad comes in, because they sort of are like, well, all of you must just have all of your cultural experiences in common, right? And obviously he's coming from a very different place. I mean, not only like literally, you know, Vietnam is different than both America as well as Korea and the Philippines, but he's older than them, and he's, you know, although he's not as much older than them as he acted like, because as we said, he's 42, Jenny's 36. So
Oh wow, okay.
yeah, I know. She looks good. but you know, he's definitely coming, you know, from a different place, and you can see you can tell, I think he is someone who's probably had to use this humor as a weapon. Whereas the others are kind of dealing with, you know, that this is on TV. I think is, you know, when they're talking in the shelter, I think what they're trying to say without like saying it, because you don't want to like say that on camera, is that like, we get it, we can but there are, you know, basically he's like, there's white people watching this, man.
They just want to say it. They're waiting for their chance to say it, and you're giving them permission to say it.
Yeah.
Yep. But the thing is, like, I feel like we've all kind of known people with cowboy sense of humor, like that kind of humor that's like, oh, I don't care what anyone thinks. And they're always willing to kind of like push it too far when you're like, hey, yeah, no, that's not cool. You know,
and then there's also, oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, I think there's also, you know, it's not just the humor, but like, he's very, you know, bohemian and like into sort of the more Eastern stuff, and we see that with the like the bad wind and those things, and you know, like they were like, oh, this is annoying, now I have this red dot. But both Brad and Jenny were like, I mean, my headache's gone.
Yeah, Brad seemed especially surprised by that. He's like, you know, the headache is gone and I do feel better. Wasn't expecting that.
Like I get headaches. I need cowboy to figure that out for me.
Yeah,
although
right?
I've got bangs. No one needs to know there's that mark on my forehead. It's fine.
I do like how people kept asking him, so how long will this be? And he's like, oh, it'll last until it goes away. And they're like, yeah, but how long is that? And he's like, until it's all healed. And he's like smiling as he says this because he knows that is not what they want to hear.
Yeah, and I think we really see this in, you know, a lot, like each of the tribes, and obviously that's often the case, but on these small tribes, you know, there's really only like one outsider. Like usually we'll get like there's a couple misfits, you know, who kind of band together, but with tribes of 5, you just have like maybe 2 people, but often not, who just kind of stick out. Like you had Billy, obviously, Flicka.
Yeah,
a little weird, and you know, Penna
like
in a different
Penna
way.
are kind of, but yeah.
Yeah, but they also don't connect to each other.
That is true.
Which is tricky for them.
Yeah, and she kind of screwed up early by releasing the chickens.
Yeah, but it did lead to the greatest episode title of all time.
Yeah.
It's so long.
It's a very long episode.
I don't remember what it all is. It's like, I could forgive her, but I don't have to.
I can forgive her, but I don't have to because she screwed with my chickens.
She screwed with my chickens.
Yeah. Jonathan Penner special.
I love him so much.
Yeah, he's still Jonathan at this point too, which is very odd to me.
Yeah, it must be Probst who starts calling him Penner. We'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. I suspect it doesn't happen until his return season.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right, because even when Probst, like that famous line we'll eventually hear is that Jonathan getting frustrated by me.
Yes. So I think everyone else we have to talk to is a future returning player. So let's just kind of throw that toward the end. Emma, you watched with your significant other. I did with mine as well. Any other thoughts from him?
Well, as did Andy, who even though
I guess that's true, but she
doesn't remember.
Season, she just doesn't remember. That's fair.
We all got someone.
I'm sorry, Andy. I'm sorry for disrespecting your wife.
It's okay. I wasn't going to, and then she's like, "I'll watch."
Okay.
Yeah. So we went over the Billy thing, which was truly magnificent. He likes Yule so far, so that's good. Don't want to be too loud as I say that. Does not understand why Candace is the one getting all of the romantic attention. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, Candace and Parvati's right there. And he's like, yeah, and the other one. I'm like, wait, Flicka? Oh dear.
He has an interesting taste during these seasons, apparently.
Well, the thing is, the ones we talk about, yes, because Krista, but we watched a few in between, and that was much more normal. Like, he was very into Amanda.
Okay.
Really liked Misty during her brief time on Panama, and then like kind of like Danielle, but mostly was just laughing at just how often they like show her chest. Like, and so he's just like, what are they doing here? But could not get over blurred Amanda. It's like, what is happening with her bikini bottom? But was definitely like, oh, she's definitely the hottest person who's been on so far. So it's like, well, we'll see. 2 episodes in, we've barely even seen Parvati. The Flicka thing really threw me off, though. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have too much more to add. This is actually the first season that my girlfriend has seen, like very first season. I mean, she like was vaguely familiar with some of it. Maybe she had watched a little bit of an early season
like
way back when.
The very early seasons when everybody watched.
I think so, but she didn't really remember it. So like she's intrigued, she's into it. She's very skeptical of all the weird indigenous appropriation with like the tribal council and the way the immunity idols look and all of that stuff. She's very uncomfortable with that. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't get better. The theme this season, that doesn't repeat. This doesn't get better.
That's just the show.
That's table stakes. That's the first time I've heard that. I believe the commenters kind of mentioned that before. Even in questions like, did they ever get better with that? I'm like, no. They get a little better at like other types of sensitivity, but it will.
I would say the idols might get a little better. The idols might get like a little like less.
Well, I think they'll actually get worse at some points. Like I think there might be shrunken heads or something going on.
That's Panama. Yeah, I think that one of the seasons we've just watched, that's probably the worst one because you have the shrunken head. China is fine because that's like they have all this like art, art of war stuff like that, and it's just like look at the great history of China and so that they can like lean in on. And Palast is kind of interesting because they just focus on all the like World War II of it all, sort of like Pearl Islands with pirates. Also, quick sidebar: Palau might be the most beautiful place they've ever had Survivor. It's watching that like it is stunning. It is so pretty and like interesting, but we won't get into that too much because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think if they get better recently, it's just because they have to get generic. So now it's
and that's also
about
why
a
I
particular
thought they
culture
might be better
because it's the same place, and more about Survivor as the culture.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of why I was thinking it might be getting a little better. But yeah, and then besides that, she also likes Yul. She also really likes Stephanie. When I asked her who would win, she's like, probably I would maybe pick Yul right now, or maybe Stephanie. And I'm like, yeah, one of those is going to work out pretty well. The other one, not so much.
You know what's interesting about this? I mean, obviously not 100% success rate. Pearl Islands wouldn't have been there. But this is still a bit of an era of Survivor where I think if you don't know the show, you might watch and assume that somebody who is impressive would be the winner, which is not the way that is going to work later. In fact, not the way like a fan would be. A fan would be like, well, no, that guy is too obviously impressive, that person. But I think there was still some of that happening more now. Like I don't play Fantasy Survivor, but I'm almost tempted on the next season to just pick the 4 most mediocre white dudes and see what goes down. Maybe the new casting will not make that strategy work.
Right.
Fingers crossed. Oh yeah, other opinions. So Yul was the main standout. He did after the first episode seem to like Sandra, which was interesting. And I was like, oh, she's on TV. I've seen her in Parenthood once.
Yeah, I keep thinking she recognized her. It's like there's no way you recognize her from that one role in Parenthood. Or
no. I did show him the clip of Penner in Seinfeld though, because he's been rewatching Seinfeld.
Yes.
So that was fun. And then really, I think that after the vote out of Billy, he just doesn't like he doesn't like Ozzy, he doesn't like JP, but also doesn't like Christina. Just like, well, it's a little self-hating.
Hold on. Can we talk about Christina a little bit? Because there was one point. So Christina and Ozzy's interactions are actually kind of really funny because she cannot stop being such a huge cop by the fact that she keeps calling him like Oscar in the way that she does. Big time cop move. Just big time cop move, right?
And it's especially funny because both Billy and JP are nicknames.
I mean, Cecilia starts going by Cece too.
Yeah, Cece. Yeah, Cecilia Cece. Literally everyone else. I mean, I don't remember. I know I've looked up. I don't remember what JP stands for. And then in looking up the age, I saw Billy's real name's like Virgilio, and he calls him Billy, which there's a connection there. And then Cece, but like cannot call him Ozzy.
No.
Can't do it.
It's not like Ozzy is a ridiculous, like it is just a diminutive form of Oscar. I did not say that word correctly, but diminutive form of Oscar. Like it is an acceptable like name. It's not like she's asking him to call him something ridiculous like
and he's like
or something.
Tarzan.
Yeah. But no, it's like Oscar. It's like the suspect is what you're trying to say here, cop lady.
Yes. No, and I you
like,
really
smells
notice
like
it.
weed. I don't know how, but he does.
You really notice it once they start, like once she starts clashing with him. That's when it kicks into like full gear. So yeah, I just had to bring that up because that was one thing that really amused me on this.
Also, because of the other side of it is like we have the confessional from Ozzy that starts where he's like, "Yeah, Christina and I don't really get along. Like, for one, she's a cop."
Did Ozzy say ACAB?
Ozzy said ACAB, baby.
Do we have to stand him for that though?
But then he immediately throws the stupidest challenge throw of all time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The very first time I watched this, I was out on Ozzy from this episode through for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
For one, it offends my sensibilities, not the throwing of challenges, but the poor strategy, right? Just like, this is stupid. There's a sense of entitlement that he projects that he will continue to project. To his credit, it's not quite arrogance if you are that good. I mean, maybe you're not so good that you could throw a challenge and never have it come back and throw. Yeah, but like he is really good at this stuff, and to the point where you ask the question, do we have to stand Ozzy? And I know like the default for people like us, snarky, Survivor fans,
he's a
like,
jock.
Yeah, screw Ozzy. It's just like a Facebook fan. But I gotta say, I mean, and being against cops that helps. I might just because this is what I found with these rewatches of older seasons. I'm starting to gravitate more towards people who do interesting things and challenges, and not like they're suddenly my favorites, because I don't have new favorites. I know what's going to happen. I have not forgotten, not like other people in my living room. But I guess related to forgetting, I don't remember all the details of who's doing what in challenges. I don't remember who's doing some really interesting things around camp. That's not what really sticks. So for me, that's kind of sometimes a new form of entertainment. Now often I'll know what tribe loses because I know who's the person that's going home that episode or whatever. But like seeing just snippets and we didn't get it yet, but like seeing Ozzy swim is one of the great simple pleasures in Survivor. Like he is just so good in these episodes. Like just seeing Ozzy scamper up the tree, and I'm like, damn it! Like the guy is really good at certain things. I know he's not good at the other things, but since I feel like the things that he will be good at throughout the season will be like the newer things for me to pick up on. I remember most of what Yule is good at it this season. The things that Ozzy might almost be like not revelatory, because I mean everybody knows Ozzy's good at these things, but it might be like, oh man, he was really good at that thing.
No, it's interesting. I didn't really think about that, but that is an interesting perspective. I mean, like, I don't think this is, I think, as the best Ozzy season, in a lot of ways. So I'm not as out on him as I will be in future seasons. But the attitude that sends me out on him in future seasons is still there. And it's absolutely in prime display early on. But also like the fact that, like you said, he's really good at this stuff, and, like catching the chickens there. It's, I do love whenever someone on this show is like, I know I shouldn't do this, and then immediately does the thing they know they shouldn't do. And he does that with chickens. He's like, I'm going to really try to like take a step back, let them do this. And then we see him be like, okay, no, this is how we're going to do it. Like immediately. And it's like, yeah, because this is what you do.
Well, in part also because maybe it already happened, right? And like him
Right.
saying that could be a past, but also it's just revelatory about Survivor and the way that like a lot of people like to talk about Survivor and strategy and social game. Like this is the way you should be. And what ultimately most of it is who are you, what kind of person you are, and that's the person you're going to be in your interactions with people, especially under these challenging conditions. So you can know that you shouldn't do that, but you're gonna do it because that's who you are. And
you
Ozzy
can only
is a
hide
cocky
yourself for so
motherfucker.
long. You can only hide yourself for so long. Eventually, like your actual self is gonna break out.
Yeah, like I went
can't
into
hide
this
it.
podcast being like, I'm gonna sit back and listen and not talk less. And
He
I'm
actually
about to
said
throw that
this.
yeah, but now I'm just not doing that because
No.
I say about like Ozzy is like, yeah, he is so cocky. But one thing I've like as a sports fan started to get to is I don't mind when the people who are super awesome feel no compunction about letting you know that they're aware of that fact. Like I'm not a big fan of false modesty. So that's why I suspect, I don't know for sure, that I might not dislike Ozzy as much this season. Well, because I already know that he's cocky, so that won't put me off.
Right.
And instead, I might just be like, I mean, when you got it, I suppose. And it's probably more comforting because I know he does not win.
This is true.
I probably will end up disliking him more because I was a 16-year-old girl the first time I watched Cook Islands.
Like honestly, I don't think I liked Ozzy again until like they won that first challenge. And then he's like, the first to die are the mutineers or whatever. Like, okay, well, I can like you because you're helping the people I like. Right. Now I'm going to try to maybe appreciate him throughout. And maybe that's also just my strong stance of if this is the way everybody else commenting on my site is going to be, I have to take another way. That can't be it. My opinions are always my own.
Okay, other returnees. What do we think of Parvati so far? She's made a huge impression in these 2 episodes.
Honestly, she's a little bit more present than I was expecting.
She's not so sure about that theme, I can tell you that.
That is true. And
I'll
also
give her credit.
And she noticed Candace and Adam snuggling up together, so...
I don't think that took a lot of high-level social understanding of interaction.
The next week on does look like we'll have a little bit more about Parvati. A funny thing is that in watching that, my husband's like, oh, that doesn't turn out well. He's like, that, and then he's like, well, I've only really seen it once, and I think that was referring to Misty in Panama. I'm like, haha. Yes, there's no way Parvati could successfully flirt to change anything. But we know this season is not really the big one for it. And it's funny that she decides to. Well, I guess it's because after they swap. Because I was like, it would be funny that she's like, oh well, now that I know that Adam and Candace are a pair, let me go for it. But
that would actually be very funny.
He does have the bad luck of getting both Brad and JP on her tribe, though, where her wiles are not going to work.
She just keeps trying. They're like, okay, sister. They're both very
but there was Nate.
Right.
Nate. Look, let's just skip to the chase. We love Yule. And this was the best part of rewatching this season, these 2 episodes, and well, I'm sure throughout. It's just the constant reminder of how great Yule is.
Yule is so great at this. I love him so much.
My favorite part of watching it, though, and watching him find the idol, is remembering his story from Winners at War, or like press or something from Winners at War. I can't remember when he revealed it, which was that his wife, who he met through Brad, was at Brad's viewing party for that episode. And he's talking about, he's like, and that was a good one for me because like I went to Exile, so I was on screen a lot, and it was like early enough in the game that I wasn't too skinny, but it was like enough time had passed that I was looking pretty cut. So
accurate assessment once again.
I found an idol, so that is good, and I'm just like. So it's so funny watching this, and I'm like, this is when his wife fell in love with him, and you know what? I get it.
He's a very handsome man. Very handsome man.
But what I like about Yule, and it's on display here, I'm sure it'll be on display the whole way.
Besides the fact he's a very handsome man?
Yes, that.
Okay, right. Just checking.
There's a tenor to the way he speaks that is unique. In part, I think because he is not versed in the reality TV lore. He doesn't know the way he's supposed to be. He's smart enough and knows enough to be, skeptical. of it, and he's gone on and said that he felt great pressure to be this way, and it would have been nice to play it maybe not that way. But it's hard to imagine any scenario in which Yule communicates in a way that just that doesn't convey his intelligence. There's a thoughtfulness to what his actions, but the way he describes them that frankly, like I can't think of another comparison. And there are plenty of other smart survivors, but it's just like that you can tell that he's thinking about what he's saying, that he's measured, and there's just a real consideration to everything he says, and I find it just really refreshing.
Well,
it's very soothing.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very soothing. And I think the key word that you said was thoughtful. Thoughtful is, I think, like he's very measured. He's very thoughtful. He has a filter, which most reality TV personalities don't. We were just saying that eventually, like your true self will show through. You could probably keep that self hidden longer than most.
Possible that's also his true self, right?
Right. But that's what I was going to say. I do think this is his true self, but I think Yule has the ability to kind of filter his thoughts, to kind of process information, because his true self, I think, is one that doesn't react immediately to everything. So I think it allows him to kind of take stuff in, be patient. He doesn't leap ahead. He's, as you said, like he's just very thoughtful. Like I really love listening to him, watching him play. Like he really is one of my favorite players ever.
Also, he's very attractive.
He's very attractive.
I also like his gameplay, to be clear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like while he is very thoughtful and measured, he's not, to the point of inaction, right? Like he does things, he's able to process it quickly. He's not, constantly worried about it. He trusts his instincts. He trusts, his instincts with Becky that we get in this episode. And it's just, I think, those that are lower on this season, maybe not as big fans of him, will like, consider him maybe too much of a game bot. But like I don't feel that way. I just feel it's different. It's a different energy. And would I want a season with 16 rules? No. But getting one, amongst the other energy that we, often almost becomes just archetypical of reality show contestants. It's just refreshing. And again, goes back to the original decision and of the original sin of this season. You only get a Yule because of, frankly, some of the bad parts of reality TV and the way they cast, if you go looking for him, because Yule is not somebody who wants to necessarily be on this type of show. And Yule has always been one of my best examples of when people like to, set up the fake dichotomy of, fans versus recruits, of like, the true fans are the ones that know they're the ones that deserve to be here. Recruits are awful. And it's like, no, sometimes you need to recruit to find a Yule, because sometimes the show is better when you get people on it who frankly don't find being on reality TV to be an ambition of theirs.
Right.
I mean, the very next season too with Earl is, I think, another very similar example. Yeah, someone who was recruited.
Yeah,
Earl, I actually think his personality is very similar to Yule's. Like they both have that kind of reservedness. But one thing I think, like
similar
in
success.
the modern, right, and success. I think the other difference is that like modern kind of cerebral, thoughtful players also have like a nervous energy to them very frequently. Like I think the new kind of standard for
there's a like neurotic.
Exactly. So I was going to say the new standard has kind of become like Cochrane, where they have this kind of nervous anxiety, neuroticism to them. And, it's kind of gone away from kind of these more kind of like laid back, cerebral players to kind of these anxious cerebral players. And I get why. When you're anxious, you doubt yourself more. There's more opportunity for it to kind of blow up, for it to kind of make more drama, but like I do kind of miss having people like Yule on the show because there just haven't been many.
Yeah. So. Another potential thing of why maybe you don't get as many now, and this will get into like criticisms that most people have about modern game, is there's too much going on. And thus it's harder for a player to not be just jumping around all the time, because the game is constantly flipping and changing on you. And if, to strengthen that argument, we see this when Yule returns, is that Yule overthinks the fire tokens. It's because it's like this other variable that he has to put in, and he overplays his hand because of that. At least in terms, I'm not fully convinced that's what led to his demise, because ultimately it sounds like pre-game, alliances probably were bigger
Right,
at
it's
play.
like-
But it's clear
it's
it was
those-
something that he was thinking about, and it's just maybe that's an example of when the players are constantly having to worry about all these twists and all this, and not even knowing the full rules of the games that they're playing. That maybe it's harder for them to step back and not constantly be this bundle of nerves.
I
Yeah,
don't.
Sorry, I just got mad thinking about Winners at War again.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, like, I actually think there is a lot going on this season, especially compared to seasons around it. There's an early swap, there's a mutiny, there's there's stuff going on. It's the first time an idol's in play, even though it is a much easier idol to play. Not the first time, the second time. Sorry, Panama.
Technically the third, but that first
Guatemala
idol.
doesn't count.
Yeah.
It was a one-time use. Anyway,
Opposed to those other idols when you can use them every time.
it was good for only the one tribal, was what I meant. Anyway, we've talked a lot about Yule. Do we have any last thoughts? Or because I
What
do
about
also
Penner?
right, and so the other person is Penner. What about Penner? We love Penner, right?
I love Penner.
So Penner
has
is
he-
one of my all-time favorites. He was not this season ago.
Right. I was just gonna say, has he displayed any of his trademark Penner qualities yet?
Well, I think the thing about Penner and the thing people like about Penner is confessionals and charisma, being on TV-ness. Sorry, my brain just left my body. So I forgot the words I wanted to use. But is that, we're not into it for he thinks about things, and stuff. It's not like he's not strategic at all. But that's what we're here for, is more his entertainment factor. Oh my God, thank you, brain. And yeah, so I think you get a little bit of that, a little bit of him these kids and they didn't even build the shelter and blah, blah, blah. As for how how I felt about him at the time, because Andy's saying that, I honestly, I don't remember. I don't remember what my impression of him was. I know that I loved Yule and Ozzy, and that's what I remember. And obviously the underdog story. So I think probably didn't love that he mutinied, but I liked that he worked with you after.
See, I probably didn't like that he stole the chickens. That's probably where I was at in my morality play level of.
There you go.
Him.
There you go.
And I'll say I don't know if my opinions much was driven by these. Look, those that love Penner will also be the first to admit, frankly, that includes Jonathan Penner himself, that he is just too nervous and too active for this game. There's just he is great television, and frankly one of his strengths as television is that he is a seasoned television performer, and thus the bells and the whistles and all that don't impress him like they do other people, right? But the game aspects and getting along with people, he struggles. And I think watching this, and so probably watching that, there was kind of energy about it. At some point during the season, it would turn because he will be bullied at some point, post mutiny.
Mm-hmm.
But there's, frankly, he's older than the people he's around, but he's still relatively young, and he moves around with the entitlement of an older white male. And that will be part of it. But now, because I'm a Penner fan, I fully expect to be there's my Penner. And when he's not doing well, I'll be he's screwing up in Pennery ways. And other parts are I sympathize with you because you're with a bunch of annoying high schoolers. Basically, they're not high schoolers, but they're acting like it in his tribe.
Right. Yeah. Like the big argument that he got into him was over not having a floor, which was really Adam versus him.
It was really just Adam. He tried to get backup from the girls, and Parvati was I think it sounds more comfortable, and also we've already started.
Yeah. Candace didn't want to embarrass Adam, but I think she was also
with Adam. Yeah, they did not agree with Adam at all, and yet they were hey, we kind of want a floor, but I don't want to piss you off too much.
Yeah.
And then the other things that Penner brings to the table that we is he's got beautiful blue eyes and he sounds like Alan Alda, and those things are still on display.
He does sound like Alan.
My husband really likes Alan Alda, so I'll be curious to see if he has a subconscious affinity towards Penner as we go along. I think it's funny that it all start, like, considering how close Yule and Penner are in real life and how important their interaction ends up being for the gameplay, that it starts with Penner stealing the chicken from Yule.
Yeah,
I
I
bet
had
they've had a
actually
laugh with
forgotten
it.
that part of it, which is a nice kind of, it's a nice little arc of their friendship there.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, there's like no way that they're listening, but love to the Penner title family right now, and I'm not looking forward to the family visit because it's gonna make me so sad.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna hit like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Well, anything else, or should we wrap this up?
There is one returning we forgot to mention, and it is deeply hilarious that we did. But do we have
We
anything
did not
else we want to
forget.
say
I was
about
just
Candace?
wondering, was there anything to say about her?
I mean, she was involved in the most
featured-
memorable moment of these 2 episodes, but she was unaware that she was involved in it.
Does she ever become aware in game?
No.
Okay,
No, she does. I'm pretty
does?
sure Cece actually, because she gets swapped on the thread with Cece.
That's right, she
And I'm
does.
pretty sure. I mean, we'll see it probably
yeah.
next week, but that she says like,
It would have to
"Hey,
be.
there was a thing," and they're like, "What?" And that should be fun. But
Yes, I
so
agree.
she
If it
does
exists,
find out.
it's not a thing that you've invented in your head. I'm not saying that you did. I'm just saying that we have a history of remembering some moments in Survivor in ways that maybe they didn't quite happen.
I'm haunted by the fact that Carter never said there was this sauce.
Not in our minds. He did.
Haunts
He always
me.
did.
But yeah, any other thoughts about Candace?
Nah, she, like at this point, she's fine. Bored. I question her choices in dudes, but as I said,
But who among us? at
sometimes you
23?
just want a little strange, and I'm not going to shame her for that.
No. Okay, so where can they find us, Emma?
They can find the podcast wherever you find podcasts. You probably know that by now because you're listening to it right now. The website is www.purplerockpodcast.com. The only Twitter account that matters is mine, which is @PurpleRockEmma. But if you feel like it, there's also @PurpleRockMatt, @PurpleRockAndy, and of course @PurpleRockPod for the main show account.
Andy, thanks for surprising us and joining us on.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys. It was lots of fun.
Yeah.
Didn't trust us to do it ourselves, I guess.
Right. We'll be doing another 2 episodes next week. Hit the theme music.